Hello everyone, and welcome to this video on this course of getting started with Angular. In this part of the video, we will be going over a few more important concepts such as view encapsulation and referencing local HTML elements using the add view child decorator. In the previous videos, we went over the input-output decorators, which can be used to send data from a parent component to a child component, and use the child component to emit events which the parent component can listen to and update elements over there. So yeah, in one of the previous videos, I went over this concept that CSS files or SCSS files, which are a part of a particular component, the effect of that particular CSS file is only confined to that particular component. To give you guys an example, I have this particular application running. I have two h1 tags, one h1 tag over here and one at the top. Now the thing is that if I go to my customer.component.scss, I have an h1 tag defined, and I'm saying that the color for this h1 tag should be blue, but that blue color only gets applied to the h1 tags at the bottom and not to the one at the top. The reason being that Angular doesn't allow CSS properties of a particular component to overlap or to affect other components. It only applies CSS properties on a local level and not on a global level. If we want to apply CSS properties on a global level, we have to do it inside of the styles.scss or CSS file. But the thing is that this particular behavior is, even though it's there by default, but it can be changed. We can turn view encapsulation off. We can disable this property. And the way we do that is, like, if I go to my customers.component.scss file over here, I have my color blue defined. And if I go to my TypeScript file, I will give it a property which is encapsulation. And I will do view encapsulation dot none. Now as soon as I do that, I'm telling Angular that the CSS files in this particular file are now going to be applied on a global level and not on a local level. And if I go back and refresh my application, I click on my add customer button. Now not only is this particular h1 tag blue, but the one at the top is blue as well. So that makes sense. Now one other thing that which I wanted to show you guys is that if I remove the view encapsulation, how does Angular know which CSS property to apply on which particular element? We have these two h1 tags, right? But how does Angular know where to apply which? Now, if I inspect over this particular h1 tag over here, I can see that I see the h1, but I also see _ng content -kdx -c49, which is a string which has been added by Angular to this h1 tag. And if I inspect this particular h1 tag on the top, I can see the same string but a different number, which is C50. It's not C49, C50. And using these particular different sets of strings, Angular differentiates these two h1 tags altogether. And if I were to inspect this one more time, I can see the h1 tag which has been applied to it has that particular piece of string inside of an array as well. So basically, this is how Angular knows like which h1 tag properties to apply on which particular HTML element and not have those properties overlap. But to be honest, I don't think that you guys will be working with view encapsulation a lot. I for one have not, but this is just something that is good to know. It's just a handy piece of information. Now with that out of the way, the other thing which I want to go over is how to access properties of an HTML element inside of the TypeScript file. What I mean by that is, like, we have this h1 tag defined, right? This h1 tag has it can have multiple properties. It can have attributes, it can have inner HTML, inner text, a lot of information. Now if I want to access the this information inside of my customers.component.ts over here, I can do it using JavaScript, like directly using JavaScript. I can do that, but avoiding raw JavaScript, we also have a tool which has been provided to us by Angular, which is called the add view child decorator. So what I do is, for this h1 tag, I will give it reference, and I'll call this reference customer object. Now, okay, I have to find the view child over here. Okay. Now with that particular reference defined, what I can do is I will put my add decorator over here, and I will do view child, and then I will give the name of my reference, which is customer object, and I will give it a name like this, customer object, and we need to give it a type as well. It can be any, but it's not supposed to be. It has to be element ref, like this. Now I am getting this error, and I told you guys in the previous videos that we have the strict option on, and because the strict option is on, it will keep on giving us this error until unless we give it some value. So the way to turn that strict option off is we just need to go to the tsconfig.json file over here, and we need to turn this strict to false like this, and that should technically get the job done. Okay, so okay, let's see what happened. Strict should have been done. Just restarting the application to make sure that just in case reloading might solve the problem. Yes, so reinitializing the application solved the problem for us. Now I am trying to access this particular customer object reference, which is nothing more than an h1 tag, and how I can do that is, let me do console.log this dot customer object. So whenever we click on a particular element, we should be able to see this customer object in the console. I go over here, let me just clear the console. I click on add customer, I see a particular element. If I click on this element, I can see two elements. I think this one is from the previous video. Let me just remove this. Customers.component.ts. We have an extra console.log somewhere. Oh yeah, it's this one. I don't need this one right now. I refresh my project. I click on add customer. I have an element which has been rendered. If I click on this element, I am getting something which is called element ref, and this element ref has a native element which is an h1 tag, and if I expand this, I can see a lot of properties. So if I were to obviously I have this native element, and I have a ton of properties which I can access if I wanted to, such as, I don't know, HTML, inner text. Let me just try to access the HTML text over here, which is this particular, I want to console this for Moeed and 28, the whole HTML text. And how I can do that is, okay, this was opened by mistake. I will do dot native element dot value, no, not value, dot inner HTML. Now if I do this and I go back, I click on add customer. If I click on my element over here, I get this name at the bottom, which is 0 - Moeed and 28. Now the thing is that even though I have access to this particular h1 element using the add view child decorator, whenever I click on it, I get this index updates almost I don't get the exact value as I see on the console. The reason is that when we click on this particular element, the console.log happens first, which gives us the previous value, but then the actual value gets updated after the output event emitter emits that value, and it goes back to the customer.com.ts, increments the index over there, and then renders it, sends it back to this component over here using the input variable, and then gets updated in HTML. So what I'm trying to say is that updation of this index happens after the view child decorator's referenced element gets console.log onto the browser. So yeah, this was a very basic level introduction to view encapsulation and using the add view child decorator to access elements inside of an HTML file. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. The true significance of the add view child decorator will be, like, I will show you guys why it is so powerful when we actually implemented in the course project which we are trying to build. Then you guys will realize that it is something that is very handy and a must-know concept. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to give this a like, share it with your friends and family, for that helps me out a lot. And until we meet in the next video, this is Mohit Lodi signing off.